Hi, this is Yellowjacket by Cherry Audio, and this is the Behringer WASP Deluxe, both being reproductions of the WASP synthesizer released in the 1970s. While the Behringer hardware is monophonic, the software is polyphonic, has effects and a lot of extras. In this video I will mainly look at the Cherry Yellowjacket, but also do some sound comparisons with the Behringer hardware. Before I begin, know that I work as a sound designer and my opinions will be biased towards what I think of its sound and its capabilities. If you want to support the channel, I have a Patreon where I share presets and samples I create for these videos. Let's dive in blind and check out the presets. Do we have any drums? Yes, we do. Do we have any bass? Lots of edgy stuff. Let's try something. From the moment you play around with it, it's clear that this is not a synth for wedding keyboardists. Not surprisingly, the Cherry Yellowjacket is a synth with attitude. Let's forget about its heritage for a second and summarize what this is. The Yellowjacket is a 2-oscillator synth, polyphonic with up to 16 voices. It has unison, a multimode filter, one envelope and one LFO. It has an arpeggiator and a selection of effects. That's the basic of it. But the Yellowjacket is more. More like a collection of old EDP technology bought in a garage sale. For example, like an emulation of a rare keyboard controller that let you chain the WASP into a poly. Cherry took that idea and created a way to layer up to 4 somewhat identical copies of the sound you're working on. Or you can even make a simple 4-note sequencer. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. And we already have a contender for the coolest innovation of the year. But more of that later. While the original WASP has a great tone and filter, it was one of those hardware construction that basically fell apart if you looked at it for too long. Keeping an original WASP today in working shape requires a lot of maintenance. But it wasn't just the construction of the WASP that was cheap. It also had a built-in speaker that sounded terrible. Something that Cherry actually emulated, complete with hiss and ground loop hum. I mean, listen to this. Turn on the crappy speaker and some effects and you get stuff like this. Let's look at the different play modes. While the original was a 2-oscillator mono, the Cherry is a 16-voice poly and has different modes to use those voices. The 2 most interesting modes are the unison and the multi-mode. The original was known for its fatness, and that had only 2 oscillators. Putting the Cherry in a 16-note unison gives you a massive 32-oscillator wall of sound. The multimode is where things go from interesting to super cool. Multimode is based on the old companion hardware controller, the Caterpillar, which let you connect a bunch of hardware wasps into one. The Yellowjacket multimode does this. With the turn of a knob, you activate 3 additional copies of the sound you're working on. The cool thing about this is that each copy can be pitched individually, making it possible not just to create crazy octave stacks, but also chords and intervals. Cool, cool, but nothing revolutionary, you say. Okay, but hang on to your hat. Firstly, each copy can, apart from pitch, also have its individual filter, pan, attack and release. If that didn't blow your mind, the multimode can be set to a cycle state, where the individual copies aren't played at the same time, but rather after each other, effectively making it into a simple 4-note sequencer affecting filter, pitch, pan or the envelope. The main reason why the Wasp is still regarded as one of the coolest sounding monos is the filter, which not only has a unique tone, but also sets everything on fire. While the Wasp Deluxe from Behringer is not a perfect clone, the general consensus is that it does a decent enough job with capturing the feel of the filter. So let's compare the Yellowjacket with the Behringer. And let's begin with a simple sweep. Stacked sawtooth 1 octave apart and the volume to 11 for that overdriven character. I absolutely love the harmonics of the resonance on the Wasp. And now I wonder how it would sound like if stacking 4 copies using the multimode with just tiny differences in the filter. This is incredible. The multimode is crazy. One of the things I really like to do when making sounds is to explore how well a synth is when building drums with it. Due to its rebellious filter and less than precise envelopes, the original Wasp was never optimal for making drums. And this is also true for the Yellowjacket. But thanks to the additions Cherry made, it is easier to turn it into a characterful drum machine with a very unique sound. Here is how the Yellowjacket sounds like when turned into a drum machine. I've added all those drum sounds, presets, plus the sounds as audio samples as a download on my Patreon for those who are interested. The pack contains 66 presets and 69 samples. Let's move on to the oscillators, which basically contain square and sawtooth, plus a magical waveform called ENH, which is a PWM oscillator with a fixed modulator. Just like with the Behringer, Oscillator 1 can also do proper PWM, and Oscillator 2 has oscillator sync, which never appeared on the hardware. While the sync doesn't have pitch modulation, you can assign the controller to the knob with MIDI Learn, like the modulation wheel, for example, which actually is really cool. Just a few words on the effects section before we move on to the summary. It has a proper selection of effects that suit the synth well. There are the normal reverb, delay, flanger, chorus, phaser, but also fuzz distortion module with a couple of different modes. You also activate the speaker emulation from here. Perhaps a testament of its rough nature, Cherry Audio has also added a limiter on the master output. So, we heard it go big, but can you make it go ambient and dreamy? Yes, this is the problem with the Wasp. It is not a synth that is dreamy by nature. Let's do one more. This time we play to its strength. I really don't know what it is with me today. Everything I do pulls me towards pop this morning. Anyway, let's summarize this thing. Being a huge fan of the original Wasp, a software version is something I've been waiting a long time for. I honestly thought GeForce would be the first with a virtual Wasp, but Cherry went there first and I'm happy to finally have a software Wasp. The Cherry Yellowjacket does an excellent job of doing justice to the Wasp. What I like a lot about it is that Cherry went deep into the EDP ecosystem of the original hardware. From a sound designing perspective, the multi-mode is fantastic and something that should be available on more synthesizers. Emulating the crappy speaker complete with a switchable ground hum is one of those additions that is really not necessary but makes the synth more fun and playful. My only complaint about the Yellowjacket is not so much about the software itself, but rather the nature of the Wasp as a synthesizer. It's not a meek little thing. Using too many instances quickly becomes like a shouting match of muscular bodybuilders in a gym. My advice is to use 1 or 2 instances and give the synth room to breathe. Here are my top 5 features as a sound designer: multimode, filter, speaker emulation, unison, and oscillator sync with MIDI control. Thank you for listening.